In his later years, Tolstoy abandoned fiction to construct a rigid, rationalist framework for human ethics. His text, The Christian Teaching, identifies human suffering as a structural contradiction within our own consciousness. Tolstoy defines the animal being as the physical self, driven exclusively by isolated survival and personal welfare. This system is mathematically doomed. The pursuit of permanent welfare inevitably crashes into the hard boundaries of physical deterioration and mortality. The second half of the contradiction is the spiritual being. This awakened rational consciousness seeks welfare that is infinite and universal. Tolstoy frames true life as the continuous, active transfer of identity from the doomed animal self to the rational, universal self. In practice, this transfer is often stalled by operational failures and cognitive blind spots inherent to human society. Tolstoy provides a method to identify and systematically dismantle the blockers preventing this expansion of welfare. The innermost layer consists of sins, the inertial, selfish habits of our animal nature. These habits exist in three states: innate biological drives, traditional habits inherited from society, and personal habits. Tolstoy maps 6 distinct categories: sensual, idleness, avarice, ambition, sexual, and intoxication. These habits act as a restrictive cage, physically locking human energy into maintaining the isolated self. When the rational mind awakens, it registers cognitive dissonance, recognizing these animal habits directly cause suffering. Faced with this dissonance, the human mind often protects the sin by inventing elaborate justifications. The intellect builds logical fortresses to defend its own selfishness, leaving the underlying animal instinct untouched. These rationalizations form a second layer of defense, called snares. A snare is a structural logic that institutionalizes a sin, allowing the individual to commit it without the burden of guilt. In the family snare, the biological instinct to protect one's offspring is elevated to a supreme virtue, excusing the neglect of universal justice. This creates a direct operational link. Love for children justifies the sin of avarice, hoarding resources and withholding them from others. The snare of activity works similarly, prioritizing professional duty or industrial output over the immediate, living work of helping a neighbor. The most expansive rationalization is the state snare. It artificially distributes responsibility across a hierarchy, where superiors issue orders for the general welfare, and subordinates execute them as duty, ensuring no individual feels the moral weight of collective violence. Under the guise of the greater good, this mechanism justifies systemic cruelty, including wars, slavery, and executions. Snares are the true danger, as they allow highly rational people to participate in systemic suffering with a clear conscience. Why does the rational human mind accept these destructive snares as valid moral laws? It requires an outermost armor of religious deception. This layer intentionally perverts human reason, blinding it so it cannot analyze or question the snares. The primary mechanic of this deception is the intentional substitution of actual faith with blind credulity. It uses sensory manipulation, grand architecture, incense, and musical rituals to overload senses and bypass critical thought. It relies on the fallacy of intermediaries, the false claim that humans must rely on priests, saints, or specific ancient texts rather than accessing truth directly. The most effective method is childhood indoctrination, installing these deceptions into the mind before the faculty of reason has matured enough to defend itself. Traditional religious infrastructure acts as a protective shield, guaranteeing the survival of the systemic sins causing human suffering. Tolstoy identifies pure, universal human reason as the only tool capable of breaking this system. To operate this framework requires the absolute rejection of the supernatural, miracles, and all theological intermediaries. Applying strict reason immediately shatters the outermost layer of religious deception. Without the protective armor of mystical authority, the logical fallacies upholding the state and family snares instantly collapse. Stripped of deceptions and societal rationalizations, the individual is left face to face with their raw, unhidden sins. True faith involves the relentless application of logic to dismantle our own comforting societal illusions. To resolve the remaining sins, Tolstoy establishes a strict operational hierarchy. This chain must be followed precisely. First, intoxication. Stimulants disable reason. Second, idleness. Profiting off others blocks progress. Third, sensual sin. Material desires must be reduced. Fourth, avarice. Overcoming hoarding starves systemic power. Finally, ambition. Addressing the desire to subjugate others. Skipping steps guarantees total failure, as the higher behavioral issues are inherently rooted in the unresolved lower ones. Systematically destroying these societal justifications and adhering to this sequence clears the way for universal love.